Emergency departments, avoid them at all costs. Down where I live in Geelong, there's one public hospital and there are two private hospitals, and I've only ever had to go to emergency twice. And with the private hospitals, they've got emergency departments, so you just pay an upfront fee and you get seen really quickly. It's fantastic. You guys don't have that here. So 4 hours later. Anywho, I'm very relieved I'm not here with an eye patch on looking like a pirate, because that would be truly odd. So thanks for the invitation, Stephen and Megan, to come and share with your beautiful people. Stephen speaks very highly of all of you. I'm not your average speaker, and I don't ever normally stay on a stage. I like to get up and close and personal with you and, see what you're writing and really dive deep into your business. But because we're recording, I'm up here. But that may change. So if I come up and get close and personal, it's just because I want to help you. So the thing about publicity is that it's often the most misunderstood and scary part, often when people look across their marketing arsenal. So in your marketing toolbox, there are a number of things, and you've been very privileged this couple of days to have experts in various fields of marketing come and share their expertise with you. The sad thing about publicity is that the traditional way of accessing publicity is via the front door of a PR agency. So Steve and I were talking about it last night, probably somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000, month in, month out, with a minimum 6-month engagement, and that's the way people access publicity. And most small to medium businesses just think, I just can't afford that. So I've worked in agencies on both sides of the country and had lots of exciting entrepreneurs come knowing that free media coverage was the way forward for their business, but then they look at the bottom line and they think, I just can't afford that. And that broke my heart just one too many times, because I absolutely love dealing with entrepreneurs and small business owners. So now what I do is travel around the country empowering people just like you to be able to do publicity for themselves. And all of the people that you see before you on the show reel, they've all sat in a room somewhere just like you and have not done any publicity before in their life ever, until they heard what I had to say. So what I want to do is share all of those insider PR secrets with you. It's one of the reasons that the Fairfax journalists refer to me as the PR Antichrist, and I'm quite happy with that title, because it's a real paradigm shift the way that we go about it. But all of these people from around the country have generated all of this coverage, and you can too. Because the reality is, have you ever opened up a newspaper and seen a double-page spread with a note from the editor, a double-page spread that's blank, with a note from the editor saying, sorry, didn't have anything to put here today? Who's seen that? You've seen a double-page spread that's blank with a note from the editor saying, sorry, didn't have anything to put here? No, of course not. So the space is there for the taking. And my question to all of you is, why not you? Why not you? Why not you? Because the space has to be filled somehow. So why not with you? And with the business, the story about your business. And that's what I'm going to unlock for you today. So we've got 2 sessions together today, and this session we're going to, so there's a bit of a continuum of publicity, I suppose, and I'm going to take you part of the way down the continuum. This first session is about the biggest mistakes that business owners make when they come to approaching the media and dealing with publicity, because I want you to succeed quickly, not fail fast. So I want to give you those insider tips about what to avoid and how to avoid them. The second session will be drilling down more into what the journalists actually want from you. Because one of the conversation that Steve referred to last night was about the changing landscape of media, and the fact that, yes, the print editions of the Sydney Morning Herald or the Daily Telegraph, for example, may be shrinking, but all of that content is migrating online, because all the eyeballs have migrated to the digital platform. So they're still publishing under those mastheads, but the bulk of their content is appearing in a digital environment. What does that digital environment mean for you? It means that no longer, well, I mean, the paper is still printed once a day, but no longer is that one-day publication it. Because the digital environment is truly 24/7. The news cycle is truly 24/7. There's less journalists to fill more space. So you do the maths on how much they need you, because they need you. And space is unlimited on digital. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of my pet hates about speakers is when they speak about something from the front of this room, and at the back of the room they do something completely different or haven't done it at all. Has anyone ever experienced a speaker like that, where there's just a massive disconnect between what they say and what they do? Yeah, right. This is the story just for you. I spoke at a conference years ago, and there were similar to this, but quite different. And there were 4 of us speakers. So whilst, one speaker was up, we were all hanging out down the back. And one of the speakers had written a book and had spoken about the book, and it was around keeping your marriage together without, ripping each other to shreds, and, relationship advice and all of that sort of stuff. And he was at the time on his second marriage. And we were down the back, and while another speaker was up the front, he was hitting on me. And I'm like, have you even read that book that you wrote? You know that one? Have you even read it? So, so this coverage that I've generated for myself is not to brag, but just to let you know that I can do it for them. My goodness, creatures. What I show you, don't get me distracted about these 2 gorgeous boys. What I'm about to show you is what I actually do for myself as well. I'm a half owner in a customised snowboard business called Savage Panda Snowboards, and so that's why that coverage is up there. Circling back to something Stephen said about branding and personalising the experience, because what we want is for you to grow through this journey of marketing with all of the speakers that Steve and Megan have gathered here for you, and education beyond that. And we want your potential customers, when they see the media coverage of you, we want, when they come to you, to have what I call a brand experience with you, not a transactional one. Brand in its core, in my view, is how people feel about you. Because they will feel something about you, whether you create that feeling or not. That's called brand. That's the heart of brand. That's the very essence of brand. It's not a logo. So how do you want them to feel about you? So our snowboards are fully customised for everybody. So they're a bit like having a surfboard shaped for you, or a custom set of golf clubs, or a suit, or a pair of shoes made. So each board is unique. And when people get the snowboard delivered, it's in these beautiful big boxes. Has anyone ever bought just a normal snowboard online and had it delivered to you? What was the packaging like? Cardboard and bubble wrap. Yeah. So our boxes are black. The tagline, your board, your way, your DNA, along the side, big logo on the front. You take the lid off. There's red tissue paper stuck together with Savage Panda stickers. You take the tissue paper off. The snowboard is inside what we call a sock. It's a wetsuit material sleeping bag for the snowboard with a logo on it. Tied onto the snowboard is merch that you didn't even know you were getting, because no one can buy our merch. The only way you get the merch is to buy a board. So there's a hoodie, there's a long sleeve t-shirt and a beanie, there's stickers tied up with a Savage Panda ribbon, and tied into the Savage Panda ribbon is a personalised card. Everybody gets to name their board, so they call it whatever they like. We're working on 2 at the moment. One was a gift from this guy's girlfriend for him, so decided to call his board The Gift. So every board is named, and so the card will say something along the lines, and we spend a lot of time speaking with these people. So the card will talk about what, I hope you and this opens a new love affair. I hope the gift opens a new love affair with the mountain. We hope that you, when you go skiing with Ash, think of us and have a lovely time. Congratulations on your new board, Adrian. So that will be handwritten, and that will go. We don't, no. We don't. I'm a skier, I must say. I've got a back injury, so I ski. But so people have an experience, right? So that's what we want them to have as the result of them coming to you with your media coverage. We want that congruency that we talked about. We don't want them to read about you or see you being interviewed and go, oh my God, they're amazing. And then they have an experience with you, oh my God, that was just shit. It's a bit like that, who remembers the Myer campaign, Find Wonderful? It was an advertising campaign, Find Wonderful, and it was this girl sort of ballerinaing herself around these overgrown dolls' houses and beautifully lit and really artistic and kind of sexy. Does anyone remember that? And their tagline was Find Wonderful. Well, I'm not sure about you, but when I go into Myer, I'd be happy to find average. Wonderful is a stretch. So we've got to be congruent. So as we go through our time together, This publicity is not a standalone part of your marketing arsenal. It's got to be an integrated part. And after, later this afternoon, Alexi will speak with you with great authority about your content creation so that it all dovetails in together, because your messages need to be the same, albeit packaged differently for each audience, and we'll cover that as well. So people just like you are in the media all the time. This guy here, he met the journalists that I brought to my Meet the Press Masterclass last October. He's been on the Today Show 3 times. He's had 2 articles written about him in a business magazine and 3 in a women's magazine since October last year. He's on fire. So why? What is it that is so powerful about publicity, do you think? And I want this to be interactive, so feel free to speak up. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And what does that give you? Yes, and credibility. Because if you tell someone how great you are, what do they think you are? A bragger. Well, that's the most polite response I've had from an Australian audience, because normally we get a thank you so much. Normally we get a word starting with W, but they do. They think you're a bragger. They think you're a fig jam. They think, oh my God. But if someone else tells them how great you are, what do they suddenly believe it is? You're a legend. They believe that it's true. So research tells us that people believe referrals and recommendations from their friends. 92% of people believe and trust a recommendation from a friend. So Alexi's going out to a beautiful dinner at a French restaurant tonight in Sydney, and I said, let me know what it's like. And if he comes back to me and says, oh my God, ixnay on the French nay, do you think I'm going to that restaurant? No. But if he comes back and goes, oh my God, you know, I'm still salivating about it, what am I going to do next time I come up to Sydney? Go to the restaurant. So it's unbelievably powerful, and it's like word of mouth on steroids, because the journalist is suddenly speaking about you and telling people how fantastic you are. Just some of the organisations I've worked with, lots of war stories if you feel to ask at lunch. But let's talk about you. Just to put some numbers around this, who are the bean counters in the room? Who are those winter personalities, those Lord personalities? Okay, right. That's not me. So this is as close to numbers as I get. So bear with me. So this is a double-page spread from a Melbourne magazine. This piece here is $1,000-ish. This is about $2,000-ish. This, free, baby. Free is the sexiest four-letter word, starting with F, going round. And if you do the maths on this, this here, that's about the same size as that, so that's about $1,000 worth. This is the same size as that, so that's about $2,000 worth. So this, if she paid for it, would be $3,000. And how much did she pay? Zip. Now, in PR terms, it's not an exact formula. It's not even a great formula, but it is the only formula that we have devised by the PRIA, the Public Relations Institute of Australia. And they say that editorial has a value that is 3 times that of the book value, because you can't actually pay for that. So it's 3 times more valuable. Does that make sense? So this space actually has a PR value of what? $9,000. And she paid 0. Very sexy. Advertising is so ineffective because 99% of adverts make little or no impact. Why is that? Why is that, do you think? Totally, we filter it. And what did you say, ma'am? So many, yes, and we filter it through our bullshitometer. That's a made-up word, go with it. I make up words all the time. So you're just going to have to work with me on that. But we filter it through the bullshitometer. And most ads, with respect, sound something a bit like this. Me, enough about me, what do you think of me so far? They do. We've got this, we've got that. We've got an air conditioner, we've got a cooler, we've got a, I don't know, flugel binder, we've got an education program, we've got this. No, with the greatest of respect, no one cares about you. And I say that in the nicest possible way. But no one cares about you. What do they care about? Themselves. That's right. That's why advertising is so largely ineffective. unless you get some really powerful words around it, make it sound like editorial, which you can do. So, oh yeah. So once we realise that advertising is pretty much ineffective, there's all this space out there that the journalists need to fill, suddenly we're like, la, Holy Grail territory. Turn to the person next to you and go, la. Oh, come on. I was in emergency at 3 a.m. Humour me. So it really is like the Holy Grail in that marketing arsenal that you're working on over these 2 days. So I want to turn you from a nervous wreck into a media superstar. Who's generated free publicity for their business so far? Awesome, fantastic. And you did it yourself or through an agency? Yeah. Yep. And do you have to pay, do you have to take out an ad to do that, or are you a regular advertiser anyway? Awesome. Fantastic. So they come to you. What I want to build you muscle in is going to them with some really sexy stuff. Because then you're not just sitting back passively waiting for them to think that the planets have aligned and it's your turn. We want to proactively go to them. Give them a sexy reason to cover you. Right, so why? Why would you go down the path of publicity as part of your marketing toolkit? Why would you do that? To be seen, exposure, yep. What else? Yep, credibility, authority, all of that. Why else? Sorry? Cheap? Absolutely, can't get cheaper than free. Why else? Yes! Absolutely. Now, Alexi's just stepped out of the room, but we share a great mate, Pete Godfrey. Do any of you know Pete Godfrey? He's a great copywriter. He's one of Alexi's great mates as well. And he would say, because of the money. And he's got this really gravelly voice. Of course, because you want to increase sales. So this physiotherapist here met the journalists at the Meet the Press Masterclass 2 years ago, and he has been on the Today Show about 30 times since. But the first time he got media coverage after the masterclass was on A Current Affair, which is this story up here, and I'll unpack how that happened. And as a result of that one story on ACCA, $250,000 of new revenue. And he's got a membership model. So that's front end. Very sexy. Very sexy. Alex is a cancer survivor. She's got two great products. One is an app called I Care For You. So if you're incapacitated for whatever reason, doesn't have to be cancer, but you might have had a baby, you might have broken your leg, you might something, and you've got a whole lot of stuff that still needs to happen in your life, you kind of feel a bit awkward saying to your friend, look, could you go and pick up the kids today at 3 o'clock? Because if your friend can't, she's going to feel really awkward about saying no, and then you're going to feel really awkward about ever asking her anything ever again. And so there's this kind of unspoken side effect of, in Alex's case, her cancer treatment, which is her circle of friends just shrunk. So she developed this app called I Care For You. So if something has happened to me, or I can't operate normally, I list everything I need to do in the app. I invite all of you to join me, and you can self-select. I'll cook lasagna, I'll make stir fry, I'll pick up the kids, I'll take Wallace for a walk on the beach. Wallace is the wonder dog, it's a Dalmatian. I'll do this. You can just self-select. Don't all rush for Wallace. I know he's the favourite. But you can self-select how you want to help me. She also developed a range of snacks called chemo snacks, because the very well-known side effect of chemotherapy is malnutrition. So she's developed a range of high-protein chemo snacks. And as a result of the coverage that she's generated, she's now got joint venture with major hospitals in Melbourne. Very sexy. And we had record snowboard sales, but I've already talked about Savage Panda, so we'll move on. Naturopath in Perth. His clinic was booked solid for the month following a story on Today Tonight on sugar and the evils of sugar. Have any of you ever been to a naturopath? So you pay your 100 and whatever it is for the consultation, and you walk out with $1,000 worth of goo. So that's that's kind of a sexy model as well, right? Because you're not getting out of there without any goo or potion or pills. Speaking of goo, this gorgeous creature, Wendy, woke up mid-30s, chronic adult onset acne, pizza face. Couldn't fix it. Spent $6,000, spent 12 months, couldn't solve it. So literally one night she mixed up a pot of goo on her stove, and it worked. So she reverse engineered what was in the goo, and I call it goo to her face. I'll never say anything behind your back that I haven't already said to your face. So I respectfully call it goo. So she reverse engineered it, sold her house to fund the first product run. $70,000 worth of goo in 24 hours, $50 a jar. And then another 200 in the next 7 days. This is sexy. This is really sexy. And it's available for you too. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So the one thing that most business owners get wrong when they focus on publicity is that they focus on what, do you think? Sorry? Mm-hmm. They focus on the now. What else do they focus on, do you think? Money? Yep. That's a great answer. What else do they focus on? Yes! They focus on their thing. Whatever the thing is, the product, the service, the widget, the thing. Wrong, 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 wrong. Because even though the journalist knows that by writing an article on you, your product or service or widget will get that halo effect, will get the halo effect that Wendy got with her goo, the story wasn't about the goo. The story was about the story behind your thing. So it's not about your thing. It's about the story behind your thing. You might want to write that down. Publicity lives in my story. Because it does not live in your thing, I promise you. It doesn't live in your thing. Because if you start talking about your thing, what does that sound like? Yes, self-promotion or an ad. What's the journalist's job? Yes, and to report on the news. So there's a real paradigm shift that I'm going to try and have your brain undertake, and there's a reason why Stephen and Megan have put me on with a break in between, because your brain will need it. Because your brain's about to start hurting. Because I am going to challenge you to think about your business in a completely different way by not thinking about your business. Kind of sounds, it's a bit of a tautology really. But it's not about your thing. It's not about your thing. So to highlight that for you, I want to share with you some before and after headline examples, and then we're going to get to work on a headline for your business, right? Because I want you to start growing muscle and thinking differently about your business. So a lot of the examples that I've got here today are around books. Who's written a book? Who in the room's written a book? A couple of you? Just two of you? Great. Now, that didn't happen overnight, did it? There was blood, sweat, tears, gnashing of teeth, tantrums, flow, not flow, all of that stuff went into writing your book. So justifiably, by the time you finished writing your book, you just love it. I just love my book so much. Because, you know, you've sweated over it for months sometimes. So people are very attached to their books. So I use books as an example and also as an analogy because people are also very attached to their businesses. So whilst the examples are about books, don't think I haven't written a book, it doesn't apply. The lesson is don't get too close to what it is you've created because you won't be able to see the wood for the trees. So this gorgeous woman, Jo, wrote a book called Mealtimes Without Mayhem. She had a young child who, like my youngest, convinced that her child and my child were going to die of scurvy. The first children since the first fleet to die of scurvy when they were young. So she wrote a book about how to tackle fussy eaters. And every time she sent in a media release for me to critique before it went out to the journalist, she'd mention the book. Every single time. And I kept saying to her like a broken record, Jo, it's not about the book. It's so not about the book. And the next media release would come in about the book. I'm like, one of us isn't listening. It's not about the book. So this was a headline that came in, Tackle Fussy Eaters and Make Managing Mealtimes Easy with New Book, Mealtimes Without Mayhem. Now, at about that time, Jamie Oliver had been in Australia talking about his food revolution. And he was quoted in the Sydney Morning Herald as saying that for parents not to sit at the dining table with their children for dinner was unforgivable. He actually used the word unforgivable. Just as an aside, the number one thing that you can do for your children's mental health and their well-being is sit at the table and eat dinner with them. Their mental health increases, their obesity decreases, or risk of obesity decreases. It is the one thing, if you do nothing else, switch off all the devices and sit and eat dinner with your children. It'll be a game changer for you. So he said it was unforgivable. So suddenly I knew we had the new headline. So we just put his quote on top of her book, and this was the new headline. Jamie Oliver says it's unforgivable. Parents think it's a nightmare and kids think it's boring. Why tech-free mealtimes are vital for kids' health. So which would you rather read? Because you have about 2 seconds to grab the journalist's attention with your media release. So which do you think is going to force them to read on? That one or that one? First or second? It's like being the optometrist, first or second? Which one? Of course, Today's Show thought so. But look what came along for the ride. Yeah? So we focused on the issue behind the book. And then the book came along for the ride. Does that make sense? Do you get the connection? Because that's what's going to happen with your business if you do it well, if you do it properly. So years ago, I was invited to be part of a book, the Modern Woman's Anthology. It was a collection of stories about what it means to be a modern woman in this day and age. And the stories were all different, all varied. But the editor who put it together, Leah Greengarten, had been to Africa and she contracted malaria. And as a result of that viral illness, she suffered what many people after a viral illness suffer, and that is viral depression. So it's quite a unique form of depression, and it's about the chemicals in your brain, because viral illnesses really screw with your biochemistry. So her mission in collating this book that we'd all written was to donate the proceeds of this book to the Black Dog Institute here in Sydney. So there was a link between the book and mental health. Does that make sense? The stories weren't about mental health. The stories were about all sorts of things. But the proceeds made the link with mental health. Does that make sense? So I did some pre-publicity, as you would expect, about being chosen in this amazing book, and my local bookstore saw it, and they contacted me and said, we'd like to do a night in with you once it's been officially launched. I said, cool. So we met and had a coffee. And at the time, I produced a guide called Piggyback Publicity Guide, which listed every major cause day, fundraising day, diabetes week, cancer awareness week, kidney disease week, one-legged golfer week. It listed everything. And so I said, well, let's have a look and see if there's anything in there relating to mental health so that we can piggyback. So we flicked through, and Anxiety Week was in 3 weeks' time. And she went, it's not long enough. And I went, watch me. So out went the media release. Anxiety Week, the big thing. Depression Awareness Evening, because we're raising money for the Black Dog Institute. Away we go. $20,000 worth of coverage. And she had the best night in the bookstore that she'd had ever. Pretty cool, huh? So if you have written a book, talk to your local bookstore about doing a night in with them, because it can be huge for both of you. And it's an opportunity to generate media coverage. There's always opportunities for media coverage. Not every piece of media that you do will land you on the Today Show. Sometimes your local paper is your most powerful piece of media. But don't underestimate the power of your local paper, because many people start in the local paper and then a journalist reads it from Channel 9 or Channel 7 and you end up on TV. So this is the headline, the physio I told you about earlier. So he runs an organisation called Kaiser Australia. There's only one centre here in Sydney, and there's about 8 or 9 of them in Melbourne. And essentially, it's a strength training and rehab facility designed by the Swiss, so it's really accurate. And each machine concentrates and focuses on building strength in one particular muscle group, so it's really precise. And Tim was telling me this story about a guy called Ross Clarke-Jones. Who were the surfers in the room? A few surfers? So Ross Clarke-Jones, you would probably be familiar with him. He's a big wave surfer, and he surfers the Eddie Aikau in Hawaii, which is those 40-foot waves. Just too scary to mention. So he had a dodgy knee, and he was told by 3 surgeons that he would need surgery and he would never surf again. And this is this guy's livelihood. So he wasn't taking no for an answer. The 4th surgeon recommended that he go to Kaiser, and 3 months later he was back on the waves. Very cool. So the story wasn't about Keyser or the Swiss equipment or the precision of that or anything like that. It wasn't about the thing. It was about the story behind the thing. Does that make sense? So we changed the headline. World champ surfer dodges surgeon's knife and surfs world's biggest wave. And you already know the results. There's Ross down the bottom. Old salty that he is. And that's what the gym looks like. So this seriously was, it couldn't have been more perfect in terms of how they shone the light on Keyser. It was just glowing. People thought it was a paid piece. You can't pay to get on a current affair, by the way. But it was incredibly positive and you already know the results. So let's have a play. What I want you to do is to think about your business in a different way. Think about if you were to pitch your business to the media, what would be your headline? And then I'm going to workshop some of them here with you in the room so that you can see how you turn. You probably won't get it right. You might get close. But I want to show you how just with a tweak of thinking about what you put down on that page, you will be able to turn it around into a really sexy media headline. Because the headline, when you're thinking about your headline, it needs to be what I call unwalk pastable. It's a made-up word, go with it. It means that when the journalist is reading through the media releases they get, they simply cannot walk past yours. It needs to be sexy like that. But I'll make it sexy. So you get it down and I'll get it right. So your time starts now. And it's okay to struggle because your brain's going, what? So who's got one they'd like to share? Awesome, great. So let me just explain the rules of the game and the way that my brain works, which might terrify some of you. So there's quite a lot of voices that live up there, and they are good at certain things. The one that's going to come to play, I call her Madam Secretary. She's the one that kind of comes up with the genius. She doesn't like distraction, and she's a bit of a Budinsky. And what I mean by that is, you might be, I'm going to ask you some questions about your business, and you might be telling me about it, and I'll go, and I seriously, I'm not being rude, but I'm getting an idea, and I don't have time to say, oh, I'm sorry. Could you please pause for a moment, because I think we've got a piece of brilliance that I want to share with you about your business. Because by the time I do that, it's gone. So if I do, I just need you to shut up. And she doesn't need any help from anyone else in the room. She's got something she wants to share with you, and she just needs the space to do that. So that's the rules of the game. Is that okay? Great. So tell me a little bit, what's your name? I can't read your... Michael, of course, Michael from last night, sorry. So tell me a little bit about your business. Give me some context around what you do in the world, and then I'll ask for your headline. Stop smoking program. Actually, can we get a mic? It might be useful for this to be recorded as well, so that people watching this can go, oh my God, he went from here to there, and they can observe that process, because that will give your viewers watching this, Stephen, a bit of a better appreciation of it. So start again, Michael, please.
So I run a stop smoking program.
Yep.
And do you want to know that I went from here to there?
I want to know what sort of program is it? Is it a magic wand, or is it a hypnotherapy? Is it a peel? Is it a potion? Is it a, kumbaya, holding hands on the beach for 12 days? What is your program?
Combination of online education, where we teach a technique to make the mental craving disappear, and we use a laser acupuncture treatment to deal with the physical cravings, and then there's a year of telephone support.
Right, and what's the, with the online education, is that like an EFT process that they go through, or what's the process?
It's actually just unpacking the problem of what's generating the cravings, what's been in a way adapted or changed in the brain that stops you from figuring this out, and then we start to build up the actual solution, which culminates in the technique.
And the technique is the laser?
No, the technique's a mental technique.
Right.
So they basically do that each time they have a craving. The craving disappears initially, and then eventually. So we've developed these 4 stages of the mental process. So initially, they'll do the technique when they have a craving, and then once they've mastered the faster version of that, they do it prior to having the craving, which then becomes a reflex,
Mhm.
which fixes the problem.
Yep.
They don't generate cravings anymore.
Okay. And where in that journey do they come into your clinic, I'm assuming, or for want of a better word, for the laser?
They come into the clinic after they've understood the problem, and at the actual appointment, they see another video while the practitioner's doing the treatment.
Yep.
And that's where they get taught the technique, and they have the treatment, and then they walk out, and that's when they start applying the technique.
Okay. I think I've got it. Good. So what's your headline?
Cricket legend Doug Walters bowls the smokes for a duck after a record innings of 80 smokes a day.
Oh, that's quite sexy. That's quite sexy. That's kind of the best I think I've had from the room, like in a long time. That's quite sexy. Well done.
Thank you.
So see how it's not about Michael and the program. You've taken the Ross Clarke-Jones approach.
Yeah.
The keys are perfect because that's the story that lives behind your business. So just give it to me once more.
Cricket legend Doug Walters bowls the smokes for a duck after a record innings of 80 smokes a day.
For how long? How long was he on 80 cigarettes a day?
Oh, I think he quit when he was around 60, and I don't know how long he smoked forever.
Yep.
I don't know how long he smoked 80 cigarettes a day, but it must be 20 years. Yeah. I mean, he would have been smoking when he was young.
Yeah, well,
he
everyone
worked
did
for
back then, didn't they?
Rothmans,
It's like so
handing out
generational.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add in there would be something about his innings, because you're using the cricket analogy beautifully, right? I love that. The only thing I would add in there would be the length of his innings, which is why I asked how long he'd been smoking for. So just give it to me again.
Cricket legend Doug Walters bowls the smokes for a duck after a record innings of 80 smokes a day.
Yeah, the length of time I'd like in there somewhere.
Yeah, I get what you're
So
saying.
the record innings of, 20 years of 80 a day. I
yeah.
think that it needs that.
Yeah,
That would be the
yeah.
only thing I would change in it.
Yeah.
What would be your target media for that?
Well, I was on A Current Affair, and
Yep.
that's kind of with Doug Walters, so that's where I got the idea.
Yep.
I actually don't do publicity only because I'm doing other things, so not because I don't want to, but target media, I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about target media in the next session, but when you're planning your media release and doing that headline, it's really important that you have a sense of your media target, because how you pitch something to ACCA, for example, will be very different from how you might pitch it into the Daily Telegraph or Dougie's local paper wherever he lives, or how you pitch it into radio, because each of them have very different requirements, and I'm going to unpack all of their requirements for you after lunch. But I am going to show you a slide of this, but I'll just, because we've kind of gone there, I'll just, with all your marketing, and I'm sure Alexi's going to talk at length about this, you need to, and this is from our great friend Pete Godfrey, whom I mentioned before. You need to have all of these three things in play. All of these three things need to be in alignment, because if your media is ACCA, for example, then you've got a very clearly defined target market that watches it, and the journalists and what they're looking for, and therefore your message needs to match all of that. If you had like a business leader in the local community who everyone kind of knew to be a bit of a fagger, and you solved his or her problems, then your message is going to be really quite different about the impact that that's had on his or her life, because your market and your media are different. But all of these things need to combine in all of your marketing, but really importantly with publicity. When BRW was a magazine, Leo D'Angelo Fisher, the one that dubbed me the Antichrist, like BRW, Business Review Weekly, right? The B stands for business. And he'd get media releases on new organic baby onesies. About the onesie, not about the business behind it, but about the onesie. And he felt like phoning them and say, do you know that the B in BRW stands for business, not baby? Because it's a bit like pitching it to plumber, pitching the onesie thing to Plumbers Monthly. Like it doesn't matter. This does not go with that at Suzanne's. So when you're planning your first approach to media, you've got to think about who is my media going to be? Which journalists, which media targets am I going to approach with this? How long ago did you do the thing with Akka and Dougie? Mm-hmm. Did he fall off the wagon? All right. Yeah. Great. Great. Bugger. Yeah. So the thing, because Dougie was so long ago, he's probably run his race. So what we need to do is currentify, and again it's a made up word, we need to currentify your successes. You need a new chocolate chip cookie. And the challenge with those, yeah, it would be. And I hope it's on your website. Is it on the front page of your website? Excellent. Milk it, baby, milk it. Second rule of publicity, milk it, baby, milk it. Okay, great. Who else has got one to share? What were you doing while you were meant to be writing? Were you like on Facebook? So someone must have another headline to share. Yes, fantastic. So what's your name, sir? Emerson. What a great name. Can we get a mic for Emerson, please? I'm just asking for a mic for Emerson, please. So Emerson, tell me a little bit about your life,
Well,
what you do.
yeah, so here in Sydney, in Australia, I'm an international student. Yeah, so I come from Brazil actually,
Right?
but I'm a member of an organization called JCI.
Yeah.
So I was already a member back in Brazil, and I'm a member now here in JCI with the people from Sydney. Amazing organization. So we provide professional development for these people. We provide social
people?
impact. Well, young people between 18 and 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I would say that they are active citizens, people who
Yep.
care about the world and would like to make a change in their communities. JCI is in more than 100 countries, but we are organized in small chapters. So
Great. And what's your role with them here?
my role, yeah, so I'm the marketing director.
You've come to the right place.
You see?
Yes.
And we are working with small projects.
Uh-huh.
And what we were discussing here is that maybe it would be easier for us to focus in one of these projects to
Yes, correct thinking.
deliver a
Good.
message.
So hit me with your headline.
Yeah, so the headline is regarding a project that is called Mentor Me.
Mentor me. Mhm.
Mentor Me. So this project aims to invite business people to become mentors.
Yeah.
And we invite people who would like to be the mentees,
Mhm.
let's say students or people
it.
who would like a guidance for their career.
Mentor me program. Got it.
Yeah.
Matching businesses with up and coming. Got it.
Yeah.
So what's your headline?
Well, this is something that I just invented here. Let's see.
Okay,
Fro-
so I just
fro-
want to say something about that. So you know how I said there's multiple voices in my brain?
Yeah.
Lots of people live up there. The version of my voices that I'm hearing come out of you is the person I call Huxley, and he's the naughty one, and he's the one that tries to have you apologise for your brilliance. So can you just say to your version of Huxley, thanks for sharing, but I'm not interested in your opinion right now because I'm about to be brilliant.
Definitely.
So don't let those little voices keep you small.
Yes.
When people step up to engage in publicity, every single person in 29 years of doing this, every single person bumps into the same thing. And it's their version of Huxley. Who do you think you are? You're a loser, as if as if people are going to listen to you. What do you think? Well, this isn't a really great, and Kate's going to think it's crap, and
I don't care. Yeah.
right? Huxley doesn't serve you. So say thanks for sharing.
Yes.
You're welcome to come on the journey, but you're welcome to sit in the back seat with your seatbelt on because I'm not going to let you drive,
Amazing.
right?
Right.
So don't apologise for what's about to be brilliant.
Great.
Hit me.
From a hopeless future to a career of success, the 6 months mentoring program that gave Robert the job of his dreams.
Okay. So that's a great headline
Yeah.
for a blog article.
Yeah.
So you haven't wasted your time. You've now got a great blog article that you can write about Robert, right?
Yeah.
So you haven't wasted your time.
Mhm.
You never, ever, ever waste your, when you're working through your headlines, you never waste your time because you're like, oh, that actually won't fly with the media, but man, that'd make a great Facebook post. Or man, that'd make a great blog post. Or hey, I might run an ad on that. Or whatever. So you don't ever waste your time. Let's just talk for a minute. Okay, right, here we go. So we've got, there's two opportunities here that are coming forward. The first of which is for Robert's local paper, because Robert is clearly a success story that you've had. Where does Robert live?
Yeah, so this is a character that I invented, yes. So
Okay, so that's not great.
yeah.
So you always want to tell the truth.
Yes, yes.
Always. And what I want to do, I want to give you so much value out of being here.
Oh,
I want you to be able to take it out of today and take it into Monday and go blah, 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 bing and send it off.
Yeah, yeah.
So lesson for the rest of the room, give me stuff that's real because I want you to be able to use it and take it to the media.
Yeah, really?
But
Yeah,
let's-
Rochelle? Yeah.
okay, are we having like a little sidebar here, or are we gonna?
Yeah, I didn't know
So
that.
are you part of the program? Right. How long? Okay. So great. But what does the media like? What's the media mainly interested in? Yeah. There we go. Now of the now, I call it of the now. So if you then, as a result of what you experienced as a mentee, you then went on to be a mentor. Perfect. Because we've got a journey. We've got a reason why you've chosen to back engage with JCI, right? So that's another media release that we're not talking about yet because we're focusing on Robert. So Robert, our pretend student, there would be an opportunity for a story about Robert in Robert's local paper about what the difference has made to him. But switching gears to something that is real, so there's a real opportunity here for you to showcase the fact that, well, gosh, there's actually a couple of things. I don't want. So there's something about schooling and universities, and that's another release because we're on a roll now. But let's just pretend for a minute we're focusing on where do you get most of your mentees from, or your mentors? Probably your mentees. Where do you get most of them from?
Well, actually, we are just starting this program this year, yeah, so I'm not very aware of that.
So is it not up and running in Australia at the moment?
Yeah, it would be
Is it
like
not-
university students, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I would. We're in the same organization, so.
I got that. I picked that up.
Yeah. So, it's anyone from a graduate student to someone who might want to start their own
Okay.
business.
And is the program running right now as we speak?
No, we're starting it up this year.
Okay, great.
But it
So
has
that's a
run. It
completely
has run
different-
in other chapters previously. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now we've got a different angle, a different story, right? So how long has it been running in Australia? 10 years. Great. Excellent. So your headline would be something along the lines of,
Could you? Sorry.
something along the lines of, the next generation of entrepreneurs find new breeding ground in Sydney after 10 years of success in every other state. Right? You better write that down. And I'm sorry to have shut you down, but she just gets cross when she's interrupted. So what we're saying there is because the breeding ground for entrepreneurs, like young, hungry, gorgeous, innovative people, where's that incubator for them? You know, if they get a crap mentor, now a crap mentor can teach you a lot about what not to do. So let's never underestimate the value of a crap mentor. But if they happen to get a crap mentor, it could really limit or clip the wings of their entrepreneurial journey. So we want to be empowering this new batch of entrepreneurs well. We want to be equipping them well. We want to be educating them well. We want to be setting them up for success well. Because, as we all know, running a business is hard, particularly if they're young and they're coming from kind of a standing start, which you graduates, if they're just out of uni, that's a standing start. So we want to create an incubator where we are breeding a new generation of entrepreneurs. The fact that you've had success everywhere else and it hasn't yet been in Sydney is a massive opportunity for you. Particularly if there is a long and successful history of this program in Melbourne, particularly Melbourne. Why do I say that? You might not be able to answer that, but for the rest of the room, why am I saying particularly if it's successful in Melbourne, there's a massive opportunity here?
Rivalry?
Yes, absolutely. Never underestimate the Melbourne-Sydney rivalry, ever. Ever. Okay? So having, your headline, your media release, and I'll unpack the media release for you in the next session, exactly how I want you to lay it out. But let's just pretend I've already done that. So your first paragraph might be, on the back of the success of 200 up-and-coming entrepreneurs in Melbourne, Sydney entrepreneurs finally have access to an incubator program that's going to create the next generation of Australian entrepreneurs, making Australia truly the smart country rather than the dumb country, or the stuck country, or the manufacturing country, or whatever, fill in the blank as whatever the juxtaposition is. That's your first paragraph. And then you would go on to unpack why entrepreneurs need that. In the face of most universities training students for jobs that actually won't exist in 5 years, a real-life incubator environment with real-life tangible business tools and entrepreneurial how-to is the big gap on the Australian education landscape. And then you'd have a quote. Yeah? So have I hit the money? Have I languaged what you do respectfully and appropriately enough? Yeah?
Especially because
Just grab the mic.
Yeah, especially because thinking as an international student,
Yeah.
this gap is real. People who come here, they find this difficulty of finding a job in their area, in their specialization, yeah. So let's say they have the opportunity through a program like this.
Yeah.
Through this message.
And then here's the other opportunity for you that you may not realize is right before you. Every single student that enrolls in this program, there's a media release there. 70% of that media release will be the same. 30% will be tailored for Gladys and Bill and Harriet and Barry and David, Henrietta, in all of their different suburbs. So you kind of do the grunt work once and then fiddle with the edges for each of them. Equally, when you get the mentors, they have an opportunity for a media release. For all of those different mentors in each of their local paper. Again, 60 to 70% of that content would be the same. But you just tweak it about why Stephen has chosen to engage, why Michael has chosen to engage, why Jerome has chosen to engage. You would just tweak the edges to tell the individual story of that mentee or mentor, but the bulk of it would be the same. So that's working smarter rather than harder. And it's an evergreen release then, and you can roll it out everywhere. And then when people come to the JCI Sydney chapter website, they go, what's this all about? And they click on your media tab and they see article after article after article and interview after interview. They're like, oh my God, these guys are the real deal. So suddenly, you've been elevated in their esteem. Does that make sense? Can you do that?
Of course.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Did you have your hand up or were you just waving because you like me? Did you have your hand up? No. Okay. So one more. Awesome. So just wait for the mic. So what do you do? So what's your name?
Mark.
Mark, hi.
We are promoting environmental sustainability with a new rooftop city garden.
A rooftop city garden.
Yeah.
Right. So it's on top of a building somewhere in the, is it in Wollongong?
Shell Harbour.
Sorry?
Shell Harbour.
Shoal Harbour,
That's
which
the
is
better city, 20 minutes south.
thank you for the geography lesson because I'm crap at it. We've got a big map at our house that's probably be the size of the centre mirror up there on the wall, big world map. And my youngest Elle is as good at geography as I am. And often when he says, you know, that Chile's near Italy, we have, because he's got no idea, he's like, do you need map time? So I definitely needed map time there to work out where Shoal Harbour was. So why are you doing this and who's doing it?
So we are marketing a project. Big
Marketing
project. I do real estate, and we are marketing a big project in the city.
Right. Has it been built yet?
No.
Right.
So it's going to change the landscape, but just like hearing from you, I thought that might be a better spin. We're promoting more greenery in the city.
On
And
top of the
like
building?
For the, yeah, and for the environmental kind of thing that people love.
Yep. And is this a public building or is it a residential?
Residential and commercial, and it actually ties in with Garden Week, the launch of the project, which is
I love
don't
the
know how
way you're
that
thinking there.
times.
So can I just pause you there for a minute, Mark? So see how Mark's thinking? He's thinking a bit more expansive. He's like, right, okay, got this green garden on top of a building. What across the landscape is talking about gardening? I did some education quite a lot of years ago now, and they call it speaking into the listening that already exists. So what is it out there that is a widely held view that you can speak into? So I'll give you an example. Most people think politicians can't be trusted. So if I was to come with some sort of headline about the fact that they can't be trusted, it would land as kind of true because there's a listening out there in the community that says they can't be trusted. Yeah? If I came out and said that Australian politicians are rivaling Jacinda Ardern, everyone would go, bollocks, because it's contrary to the listening that exists. Does that make sense? So the fact that you've thought about what else is happening, found Gardening Week, and so the completion of the project coincides or the launch?
well, we'd need to research when Garden Week actually is, or
Yeah.
something like Garden Week.
That would be a good idea.
But that was just something we just threw in there for now as an idea.
Yeah. So you might, let's just pretend, so the project, the plans are done for the project?
Yeah.
Yep. And have you turned the soil? Have you turned the sod? Yep.
We're just about to launch in a few weeks.
Okay, great. So let's just pretend that you're thinking in your mind you're going to launch in 2 weeks, and then you've come along here and you've heard this crazy chick, and we find out that Gardening Week is actually in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I would be inclined to delay until 4 weeks. It's only another 2.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's 6 months, it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But if it's imminent, and you'll be able to Google that at lunch, then launching it around that would be smart. But give me your headline anyway.
Headline. That was it. I don't know.
So give it to me again.
Promoting environmental sustainability with a new rooftop city garden.
Okay. So who's that all about? It's about them. Yep. So what we want to do is shift the focus away from you, because no one cares about your rooftop garden, with the greatest of respect. I'm sure the investors in the building care about it, and it's all very nice, and it's a warm fuzzy. What is the benefit to the community? Because is it just residents and commercial tenants that have access to it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So suddenly this becomes an exclusive green patch. So it's not something that's available for everybody.
But it benefits the city as a whole.
How?
Well, one, it's helping lift the city profile, along with the big marina that's happening now.
So how does it help lift the city profile?
It's a landmark building, which is going to make Shoal Harbour a serious contender for the most upcoming advanced city in Australia,
So what makes it the most upcoming advanced city in Australia?
because we've got a 270 berth marina happening, and there's just a lot of positive things happening in the city. I'm just throwing ideas here.
No, that's good. But see, sometimes we need to drill down a little bit, because I'm not sure whether the building itself makes it a landmark. I know it will be a landmark building, but it seems to me that the 270 berth marina is kind of like a bigger, sexier thing than your building on the surface of it before we drill down. So what we need to do is think about what else that building brings, or what is that building going to stand for that will make it different and that will make it stand out. So what will it make it different and what will make it stand out other than the green rooftop that only a select people in the community can access?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's probably the biggest, most exciting project because it's the largest and the best looking one. A lot of the buildings around there are quite boxy, and then council has built a nice one, nice curved edges, and it looks really nice. And this one is going to be kind of a similar style, very nicely architecturally designed.
So is the style of the building similar to one that council has already built, so it's a bit more in keeping with the environs?
And council's across the road as well, their new building, so it's kind of there.
Okay.
Right in the city, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so maybe a better approach might be something along the lines of, is the council building sustainable? Like, is it like a green building? Like, do we know about?
Not really.
No. Is yours going to be?
Well, it's going to have the rooftop.
Yeah,
garden,
but I'm talking about services and solar power and all of that sort of stuff. Is it going to be a sustainable, like a greener building?
Yeah. It's going to have the solar.
Sorry?
It's going to have solar as well, yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to be about what benefit this building is going to have to the community more broadly, not just the people who buy in it, because otherwise it just sounds like it's all about you. Yes, you can say it's the most stylish. Yes, you can say it's the best, but that's very subjective, and it's still all about you. We need to make it about what's newsworthy. Now, if for example, the building body corporate or management or whatever decided to open the rooftop garden for, I don't know, let's just pretend a farmer's market once a season. Now that's a lovely green story.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it benefits the greater community. So I would be inviting you to think about how can the building be used for the benefit of the greater community. So when I lived in Perth, we managed Perth's tallest building, which was in direct competition with Bond Tower. It was called Central Park. And so all of the tenants got in there on sweetheart rent deals, like zero rent, because the commitment of the Government Employees Superannuation Board, who owned the building, and Colliers, who managed the building, was that it would compete with Bond Tower. And they'd been in Bond Tower for a long time, all the blue chips. So they tried to suck the blue chips out of Bond Tower and into Central Park. And to do that, a lot of them were paying zero rent for the first 5 years. They had their fit-outs paid for. Like, it was just an extraordinary acquisition program. But what our job was to make the commercial tenants fall in love with the building so much that when they went from paying zero to like a lot in 5 years, that they would happily stay. So we requested, which was a big thing, we requested that they didn't lease out the topmost tenantable floor with the best view. And they're like, what? But the strategy was that every quarter we would get in a really kick-ass keynote speaker and we would have a CEO's lunch up there because no one could get up there for the view, right? Yeah. So we had to ship in everything, all the ovens, all the fridges, all the everything for one lunch. Like, it was a massive undertaking. But they agreed and the CEOs loved it. The other thing that happened with that building, and this might be, there's a lesson in here for you, is the building management would get called. They'd probably get 5 calls a day from Perth residents saying, oh, Auntie Betty's over from, Tasmania, and I wanted to show, can I come up to the blah, blah floor? Like, have you got an observation deck? And they're like, we're not running a tourist attraction here. We've got a commercial building. So we said, well, there's an opportunity. So twice a year, we had a chosen charity, which, because the government owned it, it was like a selection process of like massive proportion. But we had an open day. And it was, the Make-A-Wish Foundation was the chosen charity, and we had an open day. We enrolled the council in what we were doing. They provided all the street performers because people were literally lined up out the building and around the block to see this amazing view twice a year. So suddenly this building had a heart and was giving back to the community and giving to a charity. And so up on that level, on that day of the open day, Make-A-Wish had all of these beautiful displays and they had families who'd been the beneficiaries of Make-A-Wish's work and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I want you to start thinking about your building, because just saying it's the sexiest building isn't going to
Yeah.
cut it. So I'm going to pause you there and we'll come back to you because Stephen's lurking at the back and I've gone over time. Right, so work on your headline over lunch because we're going to circle back around to it because after lunch I'm going to unpack for you exactly what every journalist wants from you: print, radio programs, radio news, TV, the whole shooting match, so that you know how to pitch to them properly, okay? And we'll extend this work on your media release. Thanks for playing.